Welcome, friends, to episode 180 of Color Magic, your Magic Gaming podcast, where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from their gaming tables and computers. I am your host, Daquan Watson, and for 180, surprisingly 180 episodes, still got my main man, Brian Allen. How's it going?
180 surprisingly. It's like, are the episodes themselves surprising, or is it surprising that there's 180 of them?
I don't even know, man. That we're still around 180 episodes in. It's awesome that people still listen.
This is true. You like us. You really, really seem to like us.
I mean, I feel like we've covered so much stuff. I mean, we're coming up on 2.5 years, something like that. Like, this is just wild. Actually, 3 years. 3 years over. Wow. Lots of episodes.
We're going to start doing that Monday Night Raw stuff. We're like, are you aware our podcast ran longer than, Life on Mars and other infinitely better shows that just actually canceled their run at some point, because that's what happens to most TV shows.
I mean, we won't catch Raw and we won't catch Law and Order, but we might catch a lot of the other ones.
Right. Are you aware Raw's been on longer than Cheers? Well, yeah, because, they ended that. I mean, voluntarily. They had nothing else to say.
It is crazy when you see like Raw 30, like they've been doing that for 30 years, right? Like, isn't that crazy? Like, stuff you watched when you were like 12 and you're just like, oh, this is fun. Who you would have never thought you'd still be watching that at 40.
Especially after Mae Young gave birth to a hand. You're like, this can't go on for much longer, can it?
Not just that. You had Big Boss Man pull Big Show's dad's casket. That was the thing that happened.
I'm sorry, that was one of my favorite memories. Just that whole feud to me was underrated. Big Boss Man really was underrated too.
Oh, sure. No, there's so many crazy things that happened in the 90s. There's some stuff that's so bad that if you have the WWE Network on Peacock, like, you can't even find some of those. They don't even put them in the library because there's we can't even talk about this.
Because they did a whole sketch in blackface as DX. You had
to be fair,
or the Nation of Domination. Yeah, DX is the Nation of Domination. So I'm trying.
I actually thought that was pretty funny. Like, I know you shouldn't do it, but it was kind of funny.
It's like, I think some of the Office episodes that have been pulled, it's like, they're like almost, it kind of speaks to Michael Scott's character and how he does not understand normal, boundaries of anything. Like, it's part of it.
But it's like this weekend, we were talking about like Tropic Thunder, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was damn funny.
That's another one I will defend. It's because, they're not saying that. As a matter of fact, they're saying this is not the way you should act.
Exactly.
The whole point of the Kirk Lazarus character is he's so busy trying to prove that he is a good enough actor to believably play a black man that it never occurs to him that he shouldn't for a number of other reasons.
It's all the other actors telling him, like, why are you even doing this?
Yeah.
Right? Like, are you sure you should be doing this? Right?
What do you mean, you people? What do you mean, you people?
Exactly. So, like, I don't know. And that's sort of my thing. Like, racism is bad, but like, if you're doing a thing and everybody involved knows it's a bit and it's funny, cool. But if it's not funny, like, you better run that past everybody, because if it ain't funny, that's gonna suck.
Somebody asked George Lopez, how can you tell if a joke's racist? Like, if it's not funny, it's basically
that's it. That's it.
Because if it's funny, like Dave Chappelle, everybody's just gonna be laughing. And you'll have to worry about a few people, but the majority of people will laugh at it and go and buy your Chappelle show for millions of dollars.
Yeah, there's a comedian, Matt Rife. I don't know if you know who that is, but like,
that name sounds familiar.
You could tell he's hung out with some black dudes and whatever. So occasionally he has some black jokes, but all the black people in the audience think they're damn funny. So It's like, all right, cool. And people are like, well, I don't know if he should be doing those jokes. I'm like, he grew up in that culture, so he gets it. And
that's the whole focus of the joke is like, hey, I'm the white guy.
Exactly.
Like, Jim Carrey had a great one right after the LA riots. He says, I just put a sign on my back. This kid, he was on the Living Color. I put a sign on my back that said, hey, I'm a black-owned business.
Yep.
Come on, everybody, Compton, let's go.
Yep, for real.
Yeah, everybody knew if it was not for the Wayans family, no, he would not exist. He is aware of that too.
To be fair, though, he earned his ticket to the cookout.
Oh, he did. He absolutely did. They gave him the shot, and boy, did he just ran with it.
Because, dude, Fire Marshal Bill, like, gosh, damn.
He had so many iconic characters. Fire Marshal Bill, Vera DeMilo. I mean, just.
Or who was the pork and beans? I forgot which character was it.
I know, there's just so many characters. And it just kind of the one of random sketches from time, like Bill Clinton, rapping, just crazy stuff.
Man, that's good TV. I need to go back and watch that. Before we get into everything else, as always, we'd like to tell you to check out the show sponsor, Cardsphere.com. Great place to buy, sell, trade Magic cards. And honestly, I got to go back to the post office tomorrow because I have more stuff in there. I literally just did a video showing all of these I got on there very, very cheaply, actually. So if you want to get some Magic cards, hit them up over at Cardsphere.com. Also, if you want to support the show, go over to Patreon.com/colormagic. You can get a shout out just like Harrison Jones. Thank you for being a supporter here on the show. And if you want to get some merchandise and help us out, go over to colorofmtg.com/shop. Now it is time for some ranting. And let me say, this, we know gamers have an issue sometimes with hygiene, right? And I'm not going to say all gamers. I'm not going to say all gamers because most of us know, hey, you're going to be in a place for a while. Make sure you shower, you wash your butt, make sure you're all good in the morning, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's what it is. Some people didn't get that same memo. And even in my store, we had a policy, like we kept some spare spray deodorant around, whatever. Yeah. Like if you was funky, we'd come up to you quietly, we'd pull you off to the side and, kind of, hey man, you might want to go to the bathroom, take care of a little something. Here you go.
Yeah.
The only time we make a scene, and if somebody wanted to deny it, and we're like, cool, do you want us to make a thing out of this? Because you tell a dude, like, hey man, you're a little right. Like, you need to go check this out in the bathroom, and they'd be like, oh hey, God. Usually it was like, hey, thanks for saying something. Yeah. They didn't realize maybe they had a long work day, whatever, right? It was cool. Occasionally you get that one dude though, it's like, nah, man, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm good. And I was like, do you want to get loud about this and embarrass you, or you want to go take care of this? Right? Like, you got two choices. Fortunately, nobody ever took me up where I had to embarrass them. They kind of just went, all right, cool. You're right. Yeah. But at tournaments, it was tough, man. It was tough because you're talking about an environment where we don't necessarily know everybody on that personal basis. And, some of the people wouldn't even be competitors. They'd just be people hanging out or people that came with somebody else. And man, like, some of them are funky to the point you pass by, right? And you check yourself, right? Like, you get that whistle, and you're like, "Whoa, was that me?" Like, because if it's me, I gotta go do something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing the double check. I'm like, "Whoa,
it's strong." Like, oh my God!
And the other thing too is you could tell when somebody passed by and it wasn't you because 4 or 5 people all of a sudden did the body check. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they would do oh man, you see multiple people checking, and you're like, "Oh, that wasn't us. So that was that dude that just walked by."
Yeah.
Like. But to that end, now I'd run a lot, and I told people before, Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments were some of the worst tournaments to run because of their community. And don't get me wrong, we ran some of the Shonen Jumps and whatever, and the money was good.
Yeah.
But damn, there were headaches. We had more police reports, snatch and grabs, kids threatened at knife point, people cornered in a bathroom. Like, I'd go a list. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh alone, you put everything else in another pile, Yu-Gi-Oh has easily 10 times more issues than all, and I mean literally all the other events that we ran. And that was universal. And we went to conferences with other TOs and stuff for Upper Deck at the time when they still had the license. Everybody had stories. Completely, even if you didn't even tell them your story, they had a story that was similar, right? It was just constant. Oh, dude, we filled out more police reports than I can tell you just for Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. Yeah, from stuff being stolen, people being threatened, like so many dumb stories. I mean, I could, man, if we wanted to do 20 minutes on just dumb Yu-Gi-Oh situations, like, oh my God, I have stories.
The quad's true Yu-Gi-Oh story. Speaking of
for real. But even to the point that we had off-duty cops at our big events. And then that later became policy. So now if you run one of the big Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, it's in their operations documents. You have to have actual security at your events.
That's just wow.
Because it's been so prevalent. That being said, there were also a lot of funky dudes.
Yeah, I can say back to the funk. The funk was where we were going.
There was a lot. Now, some of it I understand because you have a lot of young kids.
Yeah.
Some that are just becoming teenagers where you start to smell a little funky.
Puberty.
Yeah, they don't really know about the deodorant situation or whatever.
Right.
You get a little bit more of a pass. We still try to help them out when you could.
Yeah.
But since we moved on from doing Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, apparently it's become more pervasive, I guess is the word. More prevalent, I guess is the word. And at some point, and I'd heard rumors and people joked with stuff or whatever, but apparently Konami actually had a product called the Dirty Dueler Kit. And I am not making this up. This is a real thing. You can go to Google right now, put in Dirty Dueler Kit Yu-Gi-Oh! You will see a red package, yellow letters. It's branded just like all the other Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff. It has a shower gel, a tube of shower gel. It's got a triangular shaped Millennium Puzzle soap on a rope. And it has a small
Old Spice, everybody.
Oh, dude. And it has a small thing of roll-on deodorant. How bad does your event, your series, your players have to be funky to where you're sitting around the office and you know what somebody says, you know what the solution is?
The Dirty Dueler.
We need to make a Dirty Dueler Kit. And I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah, because if that can't happen once or that's not after 20 times. That has to happen hundreds of times for the company to go, yeah, you know what?
Oh yeah. It must have been bad. Because don't get me wrong, there are multiple times it was bad, and you just tell somebody to go clean up, whatever. Yeah. But
if at the highest levels of the corporation, they know this is a thing we need.
And now I was told, I don't know, they did have SKUs on them, but I don't know if they were to be sold or people gave them out at tournaments.
I think you got to give them away if it's bad, right? Because they might not have money.
But yeah, this is a thing that exists.
This is an emergency at this point. You can't be
But Yu-Gi-Oh players got so funky. Swear to God, Dirty Dueler Kit. That's a thing. And that's where this went. Okay, that's the sign. When you are so bad that the company gets so many complaints from it, they can't ignore it to where they made a kit to help you basically wash your butt, clean your pits. That's rough. I mean, if there was ever a time to have something in the soapbox, literally, that's the thing. So I couldn't pass that up this week. But all right, I'm done. I'm going to pass this over to you.
All right, mine's also gaming related, not as dirty, so to speak, but as I'm sure you know by now, Microsoft is trying to buy or as much of Activision Blizzard, I guess, as they can legally purchase and not be considered just gaming destroying monopoly. And there are different views on how much of the company that is going to eventually end up being. But the thing is, to people that are fans of either company, you don't want the other company to go out of business. You might think that's what you want, but I promise you, as somebody that plays far too many EA products, monopolies are always bad. You might get a cheaper price or more content for your game for a year or two, but and if you look at the Madden example of what happens when a game series has zero competition, doesn't have to do really anything to improve itself. You don't want the gaming industry itself to have just one brand. I promise you that's not you. You need Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo all really to be healthy so we get better games, more competition, more innovation. Oh, and by the way, people that we'll touch a little more on this later, but people in the industry get to keep their jobs because that's how we get brand new games, brand new game series, just more innovative content, more innovation in content creation. It's just It's funny how people act like they're on Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo's payroll. They ain't paying you. They exist to make money. They don't care about you when you're not alive anymore. They're still going to be selling video games to people. They don't. They probably don't love you as much as you love them. They're a corporation. All of them. They exist to make money. And it's okay.
Yeah,
I feel like a
I'm with you.
favorite.
You know,
It's
I
okay
think
to have
the
a favorite
issue.
brand. You know.
Oh yeah. Totally have a favorite brand. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But like, I'm with you. I think you want competition because that is where innovation comes from, right? If there's only one company, then they go, we know this is working. We don't have to spend so much on R&D or whatever to figure out how
Yeah.
to do this other thing, right? And the smaller companies or the competitors go, okay, well, we need to figure this out so we can outdo them on the next
Yeah.
level or figure out this next thing. So yeah, I'm with you totally.
Yeah, we all have, our friend, like, hey, I'm Coke, and so I am not a huge Pepsi fan, but I actually like some of them. I like Mountain Dew, for example. I'm
Yeah.
not like, Pepsi just needs to die tomorrow. That's not the way to handle these things. So hopefully Microsoft gets, I guess enough of Activision Blizzard so the Xbox brand stays relevant, but not so much that, Sony has a hard time getting new Call of Duties or Warcraft, or not Warcraft, but Overwatch or that kind of thing, because again, that kind of monopoly really isn't good for anybody.
It's funny you said Warcraft because I'm like, I don't even know if there'd ever be a new Warcraft like at this point. It's been so long. But I saw a new Diablo 4 that's not
Yep.
far away. So that's actually kind of cool.
And hearing, I guess, initial reviews and impressions are that it's actually fairly decent. So
Yeah, I expect it to be. I think the only concern people have is there's rumors, but they're unsubstantiated in every way. It's just, is it going to be full of microtransactions? I think that's what I'm seeing a lot of, but nobody
yeah,
really knows at this point.
and sadly, that's it's hard to see a game come down the pike that doesn't have just that's sadly where we are. And then I hate.
I'd be okay though if your microtransactions were mostly cosmetic, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say you can get the same armor set that somebody else has, not any different stats, but maybe you want it in blue or red or whatever to match the rest of your character. Like, I'm down with something like that. Yeah.
And a lot of times people do like Overwatch every year does different skins for breast cancer awareness. And I'll happily give you $5 or $6, so my Mercy can have a pink skin and let people know about breast cancer. I mean, I love stuff like that.
Dude, I logged in on League of Legends to get a Sivir outfit that was a winter snow outfit where like she spins her blade up above and then like snow falls on her while she's waiting, which is like pretty cool. I haven't played League of Legends in like 6 years. But like if I ever decide to play, I just wanted the sweet skin for that character. So they got a couple bucks out of me. It was like $5 or something. But it's like, cool. That stuff I think you can go ahead and keep doing.
Absolutely. It's, it doesn't, change your gameplay anyway. Just, hey, cool, especially in games where multiple people can select the same character. It helps. Hey, shoot Zarya. Which one?
Yep. But that being said, let's talk about the stuff that we learned this week, because I think we have a couple of things that are actually going to be pretty interesting and helpful to people. So what you got?
All right, this looks like kind of a week where when corporate synergy goes well, it's great. Makes everybody a bunch of money. We get great video games, great cartoons, whatever. This is a week where corporate synergy crashed really hard.
Uh-oh, what happened?
On the DC/Warner Brothers side, the Rock is getting blamed for killing not one but two film franchises because he didn't really want to have any part of Shazam, but he wanted to be Black Adam, which for people that don't know, and I know it's a lot of people because Shazam these are both kind of C/D-list characters. Shazam and Black Adam are arch enemies. They essentially have the same power set from the same ancient wizard that gave him superpowers. But The Rock wanted to kind of jump ahead of the curve, and he wanted to have a big matchup. Almost like he's a wrestler. He thinks like a wrestler. He wanted to have Black Adam fight Superman. So he had zero interest in ever appearing in any Shazam films. It's basically vetoed any cameos or appearances in those films. So, they did the Black Adam Superman cameo, but because DC is being DC, Henry Cavill apparently isn't even going to be Superman anymore. So Black Adam kind of crashed and burned. Since Shazam couldn't have his arch enemy, he had to fight the Daughters of Atlas in this movie. And again, I'm a lifetime comic book fan. I have no idea who those people are. So both movies kind of just went
See, in wrestling terms, they didn't explain it to Rock the right way. Like,
right?
he
Yeah,
wanted the WrestleMania main event.
yeah.
They didn't explain to him that he had to have the headliner for a Rumble so we could have the road to WrestleMania. See, like, if you'd have told him like that, he'd have got it. But he didn't
Yeah,
understand. He didn't understand.
so yeah, both of those kind of went belly up because, of course, they're trying to build kind of well, it's what they've been doing the whole time. Like, they saw how the MCU did it, and they're trying to just jump ahead. Like, hey, look, we're doing. Just picture if you do that. Let's say if you had done a Lex Luthor movie and Luthor had never met Superman yet, how stupid would that be? You were kind of like the Joker movie that, although they got away with the Joker movie that didn't have any connection to Batman. So go figure. Then
I think the thing though they're missing is going back and realizing that Marvel did like 6 years of setup before you got the Avengers. Right? We had 2 crappy Hulk movies.
Yeah.
We did 2 Iron Man movies. We did 1 Captain America movie. Then we did the Avengers, right? Like,
and by the way, if the first Iron Man movie doesn't make any money, none of the other stuff happens. So it was a huge risk. People don't realize now, but when that first Iron Man movie came out, there was zero guarantee it would make any money. Robert Downey Jr. was still trying to rebuild his career from the multiple substance abuse and other problems he's had that he'll absolutely tell you about. I'm not telling anybody anything they don't already know about. That's why he is so good at playing Tony Stark, because Tony Stark is an addict and had to overcome alcohol problems. So Robert Downey Jr. did all the research before he ever knew he'd be playing Tony Stark.
Dude, it was enough that I actually, when I heard he was cast, I was a little bit concerned.
Everybody was, I think. If you know,
I was literally like, you're taking somebody who's an addict, particularly an alcoholic, to play a character who's an alcoholic and, a womanizer and whatever. But you're talking about and I was wondering, how are you going to do the scenes where he obviously is going to have to be drinking or partying or whatever, because that's so much of the character. Yeah. But what's cool, and I was watching for this, if you go back to that first movie, there's a lot of scenes where you see him with the champagne in the limo, or he's at a dinner party holding a champagne glass, whatever, but he never takes a sip on camera.
Right.
It's so well done that you get every inclination that he's drinking or drunk without actually doing it. And I'm like, man, that's just great directing. Like how it works, camera shots, storytelling. It's so good. So good.
But yeah, that was the DC / Warner Brothers side. Equal time, Marvel had its chaos this week too, because as I've talked about before, Midnight Suns was an excellent game. I've been telling everybody, if you like superheroes at all or tactical strategy, by all means, I would just say, if you like superheroes at all, go play this game. It's one of the best superhero games probably of the past 7 or 10 years. It's just they didn't promote it. Nobody bought it. And unfortunately, this week's DLC, it's Morbid time. It's the Dr. Michael Morbius DLC that they put out because, of course, they assumed the Morbius Spider-Man adjacent movie would make money. And no, that really didn't happen. So now you're kind of stacking failure on top of failure on top of failure. And they did kind of the same thing. They made a Morbius movie without Spider-Man, and the only way most people would know Morbius is he's a Spider-Man villain. They skipped the beginning steps, and nobody went to see it.
Yeah, I don't get that one either, because if you'd have even done a screening, I have to imagine you knew how bad it was going to be.
But at that point, you've already spent probably $100 million, so you got to put it out.
But
I
you
guess
pull the plug
unless you're Batgirl.
Yeah, but you pull the plug on the DLC and come up with something else or whatever, because that's just going to be a waste. It's sad. It's sad. I get it, and I don't even know why.
I mean, I guess once you've done the DLC, you got, because I think since they realized the game is pretty much at this point a financial failure, they're hoping, because that's the thing that 2K does really well. Even if the initial game doesn't necessarily like XCOM, for example, you buy the first part of XCOM because you'll probably get another year or 2 of DLC because they keep improving on their games.
Yeah.
Like XCOM, the last one they did, I forget what it's called. There's an add-on that basically adds their version of the Nemesis system from the Lord of the Rings games, where basically if you fight an alien, certain aliens will have different skills, rivalries. Okay. They'll remember they fought you. They'll develop different abilities and rivalries because they fought you, and it turns it into it's like a brand new game, basically. It's almost XCOM 2.5 at that point. So I think they're
Okay.
trying to do the same thing with Midnight Suns and hoping they'll be able to, and maybe over time, when they add up all the DLC and the season passes, they will have somehow turned a profit on.
But you know what? I'm wondering, like, even if you didn't want to use Spider-Man for whatever reason, maybe you're trying to keep certain things
I think they were
separate
basically
or
trying to
whatever.
not give Marvel any money because this was a Sony movie, and then
Yeah,
they had that
but it
weird split
but
with
at some
Spider Man.
point you look around and say, like, could you have used Daredevil? Could you have used Luke Cage? Could a character that people already know and bring something into the movie?
Yeah,
You know
Sony
what I
can't.
mean?
Sony didn't have the rights to any of those characters,
But you
unfortunately. I
just
think
pay
all they
for it.
have is
You just pay for it because otherwise the movie's garbage. Like you got to pay for something.
they thought. Well, I don't think Marvel would sell the rights to any of those characters because all their movies have been successful. Or
Hell,
not all Daredevil's movies, but Daredevil's last TV show was really successful.
they're all going to make more money by being homogenous. So you go over and, hey, how about you give us this character for a movie? We give you the X-Men for a movie or whatever, right? We give you Wolverine for a movie or
Yeah.
Deadpool. Like you got to do something. You got to say, because it was, from everything I heard, it was terrible.
I think they just really thought Morbius was a good enough character by himself, and that Jared Leto would be a good enough actor to carry the movie by himself. He didn't write the script, so you can't
Hell,
blame
did
him.
did Morbius at least get the Venom tie-in?
I don't remember.
Because I mean, you
think they
could at
got.
least do that. Like, I mean, like that's something. Sony
I
owns
think there's
that.
I think there's some Spider-Man graffiti that lets you know it is the Spider-Man universe, and then apparently the Vulture is in one scene, and that's really the only way you know that it's in the Spider-Man
Oh,
universe.
is it at least the same Vulture we recently
Yeah,
got?
it's Michael Keaton, so they
Okay,
did they did that
because
much.
that was like the cool. I think of Marvel and DC as far as updating a character to make sense. Like that was cool. Even the concept of being the
Yeah.
Vulture, right? Like trying to get the parts off the spaceships and whatever
Yep.
that had crashed, and like all of that was cool. So like
Yeah.
that is probably the most surprise because it's the Vulture, whatever. But it was
Yeah.
like one of the more surprising characters to see and go like, man, conceptually, this actually makes sense all the way around as a character. Like I'm on board with that.
They did the Vulture well, and they did to me, and I'm a lifelong Spider-Man reader. Their version of in Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, their version of Dr. Octopus is the best one I've seen in any
Yeah,
media.
that's pretty good too. You're
He
right.
crushed it. The power of the sun in the ball. Because in the comic book, it kind of got to, oh God, he's fighting Doc Ock again. He's just going to rip off his limb, and he just didn't feel like a threat.
Yeah.
But in that movie, they really made Doc Ock feel like, oh yeah, this dude is for real.
Oh yeah, and that's why I think that's why the Spider-Man movies work is because they've made the main villains feel significant.
Yeah.
Even
Dafoe.
Mysterio.
Yeah.
Even the way they handled Mysterio was cool because Mysterio's kind of a crappy, like weird villain anyway. Like he has a
very
weird
corny.
hallucination gas, and
Yeah.
So in the comics, it's kind of campy, but at least it made sense with all the digital stuff and the drones, and
the way they did it, where he played, and of course has J. Jonah Jameson eating out of the palm of his hand.
Well, of course,
it really just it was for today's times. It's showing J. Jonah Jameson doing fake news and not realizing he's getting. Her remind you of anybody's news network? That was great.
They've got a lot of mileage they can still get out of Spider-Man if they're going to treat it like that, for sure. One of the things I wanted to point out to people here in the segment is to be careful with scams, especially if you're a creator. There's several going around now where they're being very, very deceptive. Now, there's one that went around, and I posted about both these on Twitter. So if you want more details, I have very long threads you can go into. Just follow me over there at PowrDragn. But one of the interesting things is the first one reached out and they were kind of generic, like, hey, we'd like to work with your channel, blah, 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 run an ad with your stuff. But they're very generic and non-specific. So you sort of know it's probably a scam setup to begin with. But I was deep diving anyway because I was curious. So tried to go to their Twitter page, find what game they're trying to promote, whatever. There's really not even YouTube videos about it or anybody sampling it. So that's already suspicious.
Yep.
One of their websites, I had to work around because my browser and my virus scanning didn't like it. So that was another red flag.
Huge red flag.
So that was a thing. But then ultimately, once you put all the pieces together, it turns out there's a game, but it's, I guess, like one of those games you're supposed to be able to play and generate some amount of cryptocurrency and, it gets NFTs and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
But if you looked at everything that followed them either online or on social media or whatever, they were all crypto bros, NFT reps, blah, blah, like
Yeah.
no gamers, right?
Right.
Everything they posted everywhere had the comments turned off, you know? So it's like, yeah, don't, even if they come with you, giving you a good chunk of money, that's probably just going to end poorly. Now, the other one was way more problematic because they actually went the extra mile. Like when they came, like they sent me an email first about, hey, we edit YouTube videos for different people and we do YouTube shorts and we can do this many and blah, blah. But in my head, I was like, it's probably going to cost too much. I just ignored the email. Well, then they did a follow up. And in the first email and the second one, they were very specific about why they wanted to work with my channel, what they liked on there. You know, so they were taking the time to actually go and pick out pieces and say, like, oh, we
which
like
is what
these.
most scammers will not do.
Yeah. So that's where they're going to get people, right? Because it's like, oh, these people actually are legit. Like, this is a real person. I went and just, without asking, went and hunted down their website. And after going through it, it looks like a legit website. However, the only live links take you to a Calendly thing so you could schedule a meeting with whoever, right? To, I guess, talk about getting them on your channel and whatever and all that. But that's it. There is nothing else on there. There's no like testimonials. There's no like, hey, here's cost or whatever. None of that's on there. And they have like a little FAQ and, you know, their terms of service. So it looks like a real website though.
Yeah.
Well, I followed up with them because at this point, my spidey senses are still like, something's not right. So I asked them for references. Like, can you give me 2 or 3 references so I can just see some of the work y'all have done or whatever, you know? And they did. They replied within the same day, gave me 3 YouTubers. 2 of them also had TikTok stuff. Well, when I took a quick glance at them, my first thought was, this isn't an agency doing this, because you can tell when something comes out of the same studio because it uses the same frame rate, has a similar style or look, especially in like TikToks or short form media.
Yeah.
It will be a little bit formulaic, right? They know what works. They're going to do a certain thing. You could tell that the creators were still experimenting with things in the videos they were using. So I'm like, this obviously wasn't done by a studio. So I followed up with each of those channels. The first one said, hey, I've never worked with these people. I edit all my stuff myself, you know, whatever. The second one said, hey, you're the second person in the last like week or two that's contacted and asked me, and I don't know who these people are. Like, I've never worked with them. Third one still hasn't responded yet. But even that said that they were just picking people and going like, you're probably not going to follow up. You just want me to show you something to show that I'm legit, right?
Because a lot of people said, even some people like you'll ask them follow-up questions, they won't respond because, you know, they're too big or they're too busy or whatever. That's what they're counting on.
Or that you will be too uncomfortable to go to somebody with 1 million. One of them had like 3 million followers or whatever, subs, to even bother and ask them a question, right? You'd be like, oh, obviously you're legit, whatever, this is fine. They're going to get a lot of people.
Yeah.
They're going to get a lot of creators. They're going to get wrecked. And as far as I can tell, it's a plan to get access to your channel and or your payment info. I don't know which, because I haven't done enough of a deep dive to try to discern that yet. I'm still trying to decide how far I want to push it, because he just responded back to me yesterday. So I'm trying to figure out like, how deep do I want to go to find out how serious this scam is? But yeah.
Jaquan Watson to catch a scammer.
Basically. But yeah, I have all this. It's on my Twitter. Feel free to go check it out. But yeah, avoid scams without doing your research, y'all. Like, I'm trying to do research on the ones that pop up for me so I can help people. But yeah, they're getting real creative out here.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw one about 6 or 7 months ago where they straight up copied. Oh, who's the company? One of the video game companies that was doing the Star Trek Online or whatever. And they literally lifted everything from their page.
Wow.
So when you went to their link, it looks like an official Star Trek Online page. But if you knew what you were looking for, certain videos didn't really play, or links weren't really where they were supposed to be. You know, like things didn't go where they went. But like, if you were just quick checking and just looking at the top line stuff and the banner ads,
which is what most people are going to do.
Yeah, you would think, oh yeah, these people are legit. They have this big license and whatever.
Yeah.
Guarantee you, they got a lot of people. Like, so yeah, so watch yourself out there. It is dangerous. But anyway, let's get into some of the news, because there are quite a few things. The first is that we got I don't know if we call it news, an unveiling, like a tidbit. I don't know. But Black Girl Gamers, if you don't know who they are, they're kind of a group of online creators, streamers, or whatever, made up of black women who happen to game. Well, there was just randomly, they started discussing stuff on Twitter about like they were consultants on Forspoken, which was interesting because we've noted here on the show multiple issues that Forspoken has had, especially from a cultural perspective, and made me wonder why this was coming out now. And the only thing we could find is that they were saying they were involved as consultants, however, later in the process. So they said there are things that they mentioned, brought up, or whatever, but they were already so far in production, they couldn't do anything about a lot of it. But I found that very interesting. One, that they were later in the process. And as we saw, they had a panel full of white folks trying to talk about black characters.
Yeah, that was
at a convention.
kind of where the disaster began, when they talked about how, this character, she just almost went to jail, and she has a kind of a swagger and a very hip hoppy walk. And like, oh, do you even know any black people? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, exactly.
And from there, it's just the narrative on Forspoken went downhill, and it really never changed after that, unfortunately.
But I'm wondering why they didn't bring them in initially. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like by the time we got to the conference, that's probably when they went, hey, we probably do need consultants, but you're already too far along in the production process at that point. Yeah. I think if you would have thought ahead of time and brought them in, especially the main character being a black woman.
Yeah.
And you have a group of black women you can use to reference that. Come on. But I will say there is good news here that companies at least are thinking like, hey, we don't have to just go get professional agencies. We can go get personalities in the industry that deal with this and have an audience,
right?
And actually use them. Which honestly might be better.
We're almost there. We're getting, they did. They did so many things right, and then kind of also did so many things wrong. I mean, we definitely want them to try again. I don't want the narrative for this to be, what I'm afraid of, like, oh, well, we tried a game with a black female lead character, and it just didn't sell, so we're not going to do that anymore. That's not what we want to have happen here, because, again, they did a lot of things wrong that damaged that game's chance to be successful. So we hope that's not the narrative that comes out of this, but, we'll...
Yeah,
that happens so many times when you have a game or a movie that has a black character or a female character. They say, "Oh, that's a problem." Like that happened, I think, to the last Charlie's Angels film, where it didn't make money for a number of reasons that had nothing to do with the cast. They said, "Well, female-led action movies, apparently just don't make any money." So Gordy Weaver would like to have a chat with you about that.
Hell, we have several that made decent money.
Right,
female leads. So it's like, come on, man. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. But I like the idea that at least a company went, hey, maybe we've turned the corner on. We have to get these professional consultants and these agencies that tell us what we can and can't do. And you're like, you know what? What if we just go get people that are basically in the field in our industry?
Yeah,
like they're dealing with people every day. They're running communities.
Talk to actual black people. What a concept!
Yeah, and just like use them. So, which by the way, if you happen to be able to make a video game, card game, whatever, and you need some black consultants, I happen to know 2 black guys that would be very interested in working with you. So, feel free to shoot us a message. We're available on social media. Just saying.
Been black our whole lives.
That's true. Experts at it. But yeah, we also had a fun event this weekend too. The Hunter Burton Memorial Open, for those who don't know, is a charity event where we raise money to prevent suicides and create awareness around suicide. And we've had a ton of people. Actually, as a matter of fact, I don't even know if we can be at that venue more than one more year, because we've gotten to the point we've almost maxed it out. Seriously. Wow. And we're thinking about bringing in even more stuff like Warhammer, D&D. We had some Pokemon stuff there this year. Dude, of all people... who made an appearance at this event? You will never... I could give you 50 guesses and you would not get there.
Okay.
It's a guy I probably would never thought I would meet unless I went to his actual place of business.
Pawn Stars guy?
Yep, Chumley.
I saw somebody took a picture with him and I guess any place people are selling collectibles, I guess he might turn up.
Yeah, it turns out he's actually an investor in a new game called Cryptic. And they were huge sponsors of the event. They ran demos throughout the weekend. They gave demo decks to every player that participated. So yeah, just real nice dude, actually. Like super friendly, like you would expect. I mean, you wouldn't think he'd be anything else. But yeah, that was going on. Several artists were there. We had a big VIP party on Friday. Lots of vendors, cool Chaos Draft stuff that had some Magic 30 packs in it. There was a bunch of Commander stuff throughout the weekend. Gave away, I don't know, it's like $23,000 worth of cash prizes to people. Like it was just jam packed of stuff, and going to be more even next year. So it was really cool. The only thing I can say for me that because I normally do commentary for them. This year I did a lot of their social media stuff, like going out, doing interviews, getting them stuff so they can have live on the feed and all that, which was fun. I'll do it again for them next year. But it was interesting to me to just see how many people I guess over the years that you have interacted with that had an impact on or whatever. It's almost weirdly shocking and surprising when it happens, right? But it's cool, just to kind of reminisce a little bit, see all that. Though many people did ask about you and we're like, "Hey, is Brian gonna be here this weekend? We listen to the podcast. I want to get Brian to sign something." I'm like, "Man, I don't know. He don't like y'all. He's not here. I don't know." No,
Stop it.
No, I mean, he had family obligations. He can't be here. But yeah, it was cool though that, just to be out and about. And I think we're at the point again where, I keep using the term post COVID, but I mean, I guess post peak pandemic, we're actually starting to see people get comfortable coming out again. More people are gung ho about supporting events. Feels like we're starting to see attendance go up kind of across the board on things. And that's a good sign. We're at least getting back to, I don't know, I guess you want to call it a functioning nerd society, but it sort of feels like where we're at. So this weekend, man, it was all good feels and good times, like no complaints at all. So expect a lot more next year. And then of course the following year, once you can expand the venue. But yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. Not what I expected, but I was pretty happy with it. But yeah, the downside of it is I did find out about some bad news. That supposedly, and I'm saying supposedly, I'm allegedly, as they like to say, there are rumors. So know that right now, these are unsubstantiated, at least from my perspective, that there are some new counterfeits floating around that at least were big in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, to the point that retailers have stopped. I was told buying cards that are pre-Tempest, but it may even be a little bit more recent than that. But either way, not buying older cards because the new counterfeits are becoming very difficult to discern from older cards. Now, I will say this. Even when really rare stuff has popped up, even stuff that it is illegally popped up out of Wizards of the Coast warehouse, I have been able to get pictures, at least, where somebody has physically said, "I have seen these," right? So far, I have had a couple of handfuls of people tell me that these other things exist and that a couple of stores are not buying, but nobody has provided me with any material evidence that these exist. Now, doing my research earlier today, I've reached out to a couple of stores in the Dallas area. One of them said he had not heard such things. The other says he's heard some, but like he hasn't seen a problem and he does a decent bit of buying. They both shared the perspective I had that potentially it's stores saying, well, we're not buying because they don't have hard cash on hand because they're over leveraged from product they bought that they haven't sold yet. That is my current working assumption. Now, I do know somebody who does authentication on gaming materials for Beckett, and I've reached it. Man, you got a drag race happen outside your house,
right?
But we reached out to him, and he says he has seen some better counterfeits coming through, but not that he would say are discernible from the old cards. Right? They're always constantly getting better.
Yeah.
But he says they're not there yet. But he didn't have anything to provide me with on the latest rounds because their policy is they have to send it back to you, obviously. Because if you send it for grading and they tell you it's crap, like they have to show you why and send it back to you and tell you why it's crap, right? He says they do offer to try to buy some of them, I guess to keep for training purposes or whatever. But he said of the recent ones, he doesn't have any. So I'm still trying, still digging. If I get my hands on some, I will do a video for y'all and put it up on my YouTube channel. But as of now, I have not seen any. So if you hear these rumors or hear things like, if you can, I would say if you as a fan and as a listener, if you can get your hands on some, please contact me. I will even pay for shipping so I can have them do a video on it, because I would love to see these if they exist. Because I keep a few around just to compare anyway when I go out and buy cards. But I would love to if these really exist, because I don't want to call all these stores liars because I fully don't know. And there's enough people saying it that I have to believe there's potentially some truth to it. But I'm really surprised that after being there for a whole weekend and then following up for another couple of days after being home, I can't find anybody who's got one, even to send me a picture of one, even if you don't want to send me the card. So I don't know. Just saying, it's a thing that's out there. Be careful when you're buying older cards potentially. That's kind of all I can say about that. But let's talk about Oathbreaker. First thing first, Brian, do you even know what Oathbreaker is?
I found out like on the on the our pre-show meeting, basically.
So yeah, Oathbreaker, for those you don't know, is basically like Commander, but you get an additional card in your command zone that they call your signature spell, and it follows all the same rules. So you cast it, then the next time you cast it costs you 2 more. Then the next time you cast it costs you 4 more. Next time you cast it costs you 6 more.
And do you know where the name came from? Because this seems like it has nothing to do with Commander.
I don't know. The only thing I know is the group that pushed it is a group called Magic Kids, which is a charity group. And I don't know if it was just a format they came up with or that they just popularized, but it's been around for, I think, at least 3 years at this point. So it's not a new format. It's kind of been talked about and been around. But at this point, it's really just a Commander variant for the most part.
Okay.
Me personally, I'm not the biggest fan because, one, you start with less life, and you have this spell that's just recurring, and always having access to a super powerful spell just makes for a weird game. Now, if you like that higher powered commander, if you like that competitive commander or whatever, give it a go. It might be your jam. For me, it's not the way I enjoyed playing Magic. It just...
And for anybody, because I didn't know this either before we discussed it, what, in terms of being an official format, what does that really mean in practice?
It basically means it's recognized by Wizards of the Coast. So I would think you're going to see more things at Command Fest about Oathbreaker. Or if you go to a Command or a Magic Con, you'll probably see some Oathbreaker stuff scheduled, right? They'll probably reference it in articles on the main page when they talk about stuff. Okay. I mean, who knows? They may even make a card that down the road can be if played as a signature spell or played from the command zone, also does this, right? You might have some of those types of things that come up in Commander products in the future. So that's basically what it means, is that there will just be recognition from Wizards of the Coast that this format will get some attention.
Okay.
That it's now a thing. But outside of that, nothing crazy. I think it was just surprising that it sort of came out of the blue. Like this format that's existed for a while, all of a sudden it's like Wizards going, hey, Oathbreaker, it's a thing. And then seeing people talk about it for like 72 hours of like, Oathbreaker, let's build. I even had people going like, when are you going to put Oathbreaker section in your Discord? I'm like, it can just go in the Commander section, dog. Like, I'm not like, because here's the reality. I think a lot of people are going to try it out, but I don't think a lot of people are going to keep playing it. I think like a lot of formats, there will be people who find it and say, you know what, I love playing this version of Commander. Yeah. But I think more people are going to play it and say, I kind of dislike Commander, or I like just playing competitive Commander. And that's kind of it. I don't need this other signature spell stuff. I don't like the games ending in like 5 turns. I don't like, I think that's just going to be the case for some people. And that's okay. I think it's okay for there to be other ways to play. My only concern is you're going to end up with people who spend real money to build an Oathbreaker deck. And then probably within 6 months, their local store is probably going to have 2-3 people that play regularly. Right? I think that's the concern when you start splitting the player base over all these different formats. Inevitably, every time we've seen, Tiny Leaders was 1 years ago that came up, and that format went nowhere. Right? There's always something. And people go out, buy singles like, and I think a lot of it is there's a lot of people trying to be first to the post, especially today, because you can make content and write articles and whatever.
Yeah.
You have another group of people that are trying to be big fish, small pond. So if I can get there first and figure it out, I can be the big dominant voice and blah, blah, because they get beat at everything else. So those people exist.
Wow.
It's true. Wow. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Like, you've seen it before too. Some new game or some new variant comes out, dudes rush it, got to buy everything, going online, trying to figure out what the best decks are so they could be big fish, small pond. Like, it always happens. But then you kind of get the other players that go, okay, do I really want to play this? Do I really not want to play this? And I think we'll start seeing that in the next couple of weeks if things start shaking out. But I would venture to guess you'll still hear about it, but I think the hype's going to die really fast on it. But hey, if it supports a charity, Magic Kids is a good charity. They use Magic to basically support kids out there for different issues, raise money. So I'm all for it. Nothing wrong with that at all. But we only have one other bit of news, and it's actually kind of sad. And Brian, I'm going to let you lead this one because, well, you just get to be the bearer of bad news.
Oh, yay. The gamer group that has, among the websites it runs are Destructoid, Silicon, Era, Twinfinite. Apparently, they've announced a bunch of layoffs this week, so you'll probably see that coming across your various forms of social media. If you frequent any of those sites, some of your favorite writers are unfortunately not going to be there anymore. And their explanation was basically that they had, I guess, operational inefficiencies, whatever that actually means in non-corporate buzz speak. But one of the examples they gave was that they found out that about 35% of their content was driving less than 10% of their web traffic, so they had to make changes there. And that's not just we're seeing that happen on YouTube. Also, Twitch apparently laid off several hundred people this week too. It's just a lot of layoffs going out throughout really the gaming and gaming adjacent industries. We're in a recession really, so we're seeing ad revenues kind of slow down right now, and these are the repercussions of when money's not kind of tight and ad revenue is slowing down, unfortunately.
I don't know. I sort of have two different feelings about this. The first is that it's hard when you see a company, especially like Twitch and some of these others, talk about, well, viewership's up. We garnered more of the market share back. Like we have record sales or whatever revenue. And then like 3 months later, you're like, but we got to let 400 people go. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's rough. And I get it. A lot of it, unfortunately, especially in the US, we've tied too much to stocks, shareholders, whatever.
Right? I mean, Twitch has been saying for years that it's not profitable. So I guess there may be some truth to that. Apparently,
maybe, but it's not just Twitch, right?
And Amazon laid off people too. So I guess that's Twitch's parent company. So if Amazon's bottom line is hurting,
Amazon's also crushing, right? Hell, Amazon even added Amazon drugs or whatever they call it, Amazon pharmacy or whatever, so you can get your medical stuff.
Prime pills. We don't know what it's
something
called.
I don't remember what it's called. But it's like, really? You got to lay people off? Like, seriously? Hell, Amazon has so much money, they were almost bought part of an NFL team.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and those are all billions of dollars. Right?
Of course, I think they said, that the NFL right now is going to be a loss leader. They knew when they went in that, we're going to lose money on the first several years of this deal. But obviously, NFL over the long term, you expect to make money.
Oh, yeah. But that was their promotional deal for airing the games. Yeah. That was the thing. But they tried to buy an actual football team. Like, they've been rumored as being one of the big buyers on some of these recent ones that have gone up for sale. So if you got that much money,
yeah,
like you can't be like, oh, well, we got to let however many employees go,
Unfortunately, and you can.
Obviously you can.
Look at Meta, Meta/Facebook, whatever it's being called, this week.
The one I will say about that is I had heard rumors for a while that there were a lot of people that said they didn't have a lot to do on their jobs. And this past week, we saw a couple of stories come out from recent release folks that said, like, we kind of all saw it coming for a couple of years because they were collecting employees like Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm wondering if that was the case, if they just went and got some of the most high profile people and kept them from the competitors. I don't know if that's true, but I'm just wondering if that's the play you're trying to make there. It's just like, hey, we've got the money. We'll at least camp on these people, and then they don't get the best developers in the industry or the best.
I mean, they clearly had some high ambitions. Like, you look at all the stuff Facebook, as well as anybody, Facebook gaming was for a while doing a lot of it. We're just out there trying to trying to do big things to
Boy,
compete with.
give me another like couple of months. Let my whole NDA situation roll
Non-disclosures,
over.
yeah.
Oh, I got some things. I got some things.
So yeah, they tried a lot of stuff that just didn't work, and then of course, they're still, they still, that whole, they, the elections, they're trying to be like, hey, we don't want to get blamed for whatever happens in 2024. So yeah, Facebook got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Not just Facebook, the entire. Oh, and also apparently the gamer group stuff, they say, is also related to speaking of operational efficiency. Apparently, they had some money in Silicon Valley Bank, so they're
So that's
also
probably part of
tied
it.
to that.
Yeah.
So
Now,
some of it probably didn't even, that their articles weren't making money. It's like, hey, their bank went bankrupt; they can't pay people.
But let me say this too, though. Besides the whole like shareholder stock, whatever stuff, there is the reality that a lot of these companies are sharing articles and having people write articles that are just bad or just repeating information.
Yeah.
They're not really driving traffic. So when you say 30% of the people we were paying couldn't even get us 10% of the traffic on the website, like I get it, right? If that's the case, of the people making your videos or writing articles or whatever, you got to cut some of them. I mean, you can't just keep paying thousands of dollars a week to not generate anything. And you've seen it just like I have. You go to some websites and it's literally copy and paste articles from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like the same 3 paragraphs you just read on the other website. So it's like,
well, I mean, there's that I guess you would call like that top ring, Kotaku, IGN, where they are actually interviewing, developers and designers, and they're doing original journalism.
Yeah.
Then an hour later, you'll see it copy pasted on 2,000 other websites.
And exactly. And those sites not getting the traffic. It's like, well, why? You're not doing anything.
Yeah, you didn't interview, Miyamoto. Somebody else did. You just basically posted a link to it,
Yeah, so I'm with you there. I just think that's something we do have to acknowledge. And to be honest, a lot of the articles you read are not good. They're just not driving any. It's like, oh, okay, well, a bad op-ed piece about, speculation on some game that's not based on anything. Just like, what if this game has this? Like, well, why? Okay, what's our premise for it having this? You know what I mean? Like, it's fine. Let's explore it. But let's talk about why, right? So there's a lot of that I think that pops up, and people just don't want that. I'm all for exploratory content, but you got to get me based on something. Otherwise, you might just say like, well, what if Kia starts making spaceships tomorrow? Right? You know what I mean? Like, well, okay, well, how close are they to making spaceships now that this is even a discussion to have, right? Now, if you said like, what if Amazon started doing, I don't know, civilian tickets for trips to the moon? Okay, that might be a real thing because we've already sent people to space. Like, we can have that conversation, right?
So, would you go?
No.
Really, no.
I have no desire to. I'm one of those people that I don't have a fear of heights. Like, I can go out on a balcony on like a 30-foot building and not care. I can look over the edge, doesn't bother me. But when you tell me to jump out of a plane, why? Like, I mean, the plane's not broken. Now, if you told me we're going to crash, shoot, give me that parachute. Let's go.
Yeah.
But like, I just can't. And I get it. For some people, it's an adrenaline rush, whatever. But like, I've never been one that responded well to adrenaline or anything. So it's like, I have no desire. Like, I remember
being black is dangerous enough.
I
we
agree.
Don't need to search for risk and adrenaline in girls other places.
They were asking you if I want to go bungee jumping back in the day, and I'm like, I'll go watch. Right. But literally, I'm just watching people jump off this bridge, basically, on this, well, I don't know, it was probably like a 30, 40-foot bungee cord. And I'm just like, why? Like, I'm sure it's not going to snap, but like, what if? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are we?
I need an adrenaline rush. I'm going to just go to Frisco Mall, drive around, see how long it takes me to get pulled over. There's my...
Leave your windows down and drive through Oak Cliff at midnight. Right. You know what I mean? Like, for real. So yeah, I don't really get it, but yeah, that it's tough, right? And at least in that case where they're cutting people with numbers, even saying like, hey, we looked at the numbers, our traffic's only coming from this much of the site, like
and then lets you know that for a while they were making so much money that they didn't even notice that.
Oh, sure. And I'm sure that's the case for several companies.
For them to notice that.
Yep. You start getting a little tight around the waistband a little bit. All of a sudden, you start going, okay, where we got to cut calories, right? And that's where it comes from. So,
And the same thing. Since I'm freelance, I technically didn't sign an NDA. I can tell you, hey, over at Tilt Magazine, we're starting to look at some of those numbers too a little harder because you've already seen numbers change from what they were. I think everybody knows like Christmas, you expect to make a bunch of money because everybody wants to try to figure out, gaming guides.
yeah,
What new console do you want to buy?
ad revenue is high.
Yeah, and then in January, you expect everybody just knows that it's going to dip real hard. January might be back in February. Okay, maybe numbers will be back in March, and now we're about to hit April, and numbers for a lot of people are still kind of down.
But you know what though? We talked about this on the show before, right? You understood where we were during the pandemic as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think I feel like I've seen too many places where people have tried to compare the last couple of years worth of numbers to this year. And it's like when we were in the pandemic, people were still at home. People weren't going to the movies.
Yeah.
Kids weren't going to soccer practice, whatever. So we were all on our phones and on our computers, reading more, watching more YouTube videos, listening to more podcasts than we probably ever have because we were doing a lot less outside in the world. So we have to assume there's going to be less traffic, viewership, whatever. And I've watched people on YouTube freak out about it, right? It's like, I don't understand why my numbers are down. It's like, bro, people are going and doing things again. Hell, I normally am at home doing stuff, whatever. I've been spending weekends at Magic conventions and charity events or whatever. That didn't happen last year, right? That's just a thing. And I think people have to come around to that too. And that's going to affect a lot of numbers. Now,
I'm doing a show that, the last couple of years I didn't end up doing because, either it didn't happen or because, pandemic. Hey, I think I probably had COVID during one of the times we did this show, but this year I'm able to do it again.
But even then, that's money that's going to shift from probably somebody spending online somewhere to going and paying to see you and your troupe do an actual show somewhere, right? And probably buy a dinner and everything else wherever they're at. And I just don't
get
think
a little drink on.
Yeah. Which is fine. I think they should support local businesses, get out there.
Definitely.
But I just don't think people are considering that when they're looking at these numbers. Like we knew, our numbers spiked on our podcast back in June, July, whatever. 2020 to early 2021. And I remember us talking about the show. We knew it probably had about a 6-month span at that number before it was going to come down. And almost like clockwork, started seeing it trend down. Now, that was also the combination of the hype around the whole George Floyd thing and all that, and people trying to find Black creators. And I get it. But we knew it was going to be short-lived. So I wasn't going out telling people, hey, let's get sponsors based on these numbers. Because I knew they weren't going to be real for very long. Right. And I wasn't going to sell that to a sponsor to know that 6 months down the road, they're going to be like, hey, we saw y'all's numbers. Why are they down 50%? You know what I mean? We knew that was coming.
We're still Black, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. That wasn't a secret. You just knew that once the news cycle ran, right? And we started.
Black people still getting murdered by the cops. You're just not seeing it,
Dude, they just arrested. What was it? 11 cops or whatever that just killed that kid somewhere. That just came up on the news earlier today. So it's crazy stuff. Or that kid. Okay, not related, but this kid. I say kid. I think it was 20 something.
Yeah, we can call. We're old if we call to some person a kid.
Called the police. Said, hey, I'm pretty sure these people are stalking me. I fear for my life. Blah blah whatever. Didn't do nothing. Couple days later, kid goes missing. They find him about a month later. I think they said earmuffs because this is for real. I think this needs a content warning. So skip ahead 5 minutes if this is going to make you uncomfortable because we're talking about some gruesome stuff here. But they found this kid dismembered.
Wow.
Completely. And then the cop said, and I swear, this is literal quoted, we found no evidence of foul play. Bruh, what else is there? What he didn't do it to himself. You know what I mean?
To say wild animals jumped him somewhere.
And then just left all the parts there. By the way, right? I don't even understand. But apparently the family's gotten involved. The FBI's involved now, and like it's a whole thing. But geez, that's where you're still at. Like, so yeah.
It's almost time, especially for my oldest son, to get ready to go off to college, and I mean, I'm just scared to death, because they've never been more than really 15 or 20 minutes away at the local school. It's just
shoot, tell them they can go down the road to Tarrant County,
right? I mean,
oh man. Well, all right. All that being said, let's start trying to wrap things up here. This is a thing that comes up, and I think you and me are on different sides of this discussion.
Yeah.
But I've had people ask me, do I think Arena would be better? And I'm going to apply this to just most games, but particularly they've asked me if I think Arena would be better with chat with your opponents. And I don't know if it's a game that particularly been, because I thought about it, right? What would I want to ask my opponents? And for me, it'd be usually, hey, your deck's sweet. Could I see your deck lists? Or maybe some weird play happened and I'd be curious what their thought process was. And occasionally they have a cool username and I kind of want to know the origin or definition or reason for it. That's about it. If it wasn't one of those three things, I almost never need to talk to my opponents in Arena.
I mean, for me, that's enough. When I want to know something, I want to know it. I would love to talk to them, especially if they're playing, some random like janky deck that's similar to one of my decks. Well, hey, maybe you got something to work that I couldn't get to work, like happily ever after or something. How did you come up with that? I would love to. I mean, most games.
The problem for me though that's like so rare. Like that would be a 1 in less than 10% of the games I play. I don't know what the actual percent. I'm sure it'd be less than 10%.
I mean, if I were to look at the games I play, that's probably true in most of the games. But that 10%. So am I? Long. I mean, literally, if I didn't, talk to people I played Magic, I wouldn't know you. We wouldn't be doing this. But
sure. But we also just met playing Magic. You know what I mean? We weren't online and had to see faceless and go like, oh, let me chat with this person. Because honestly, if that's the case, I'd probably just run around with everybody muted entirely anyway.
And I mean, that's still an option that you have. You don't want to.
I mean, I would just never use it. And then people probably think I'm rude because I never respond to them or whatever, because they wouldn't know they were muted. But yeah, but my stance. Like, I just haven't enjoyed it on almost any game I've played in the last 15 years, maybe. I'm trying to think further back than that, but that at least that far. And like, there's some games you're benefited from having chat on, right? If you're playing a multiplayer team game or whatever, it's just faster to communicate with chat. It just makes sense, whether you're playing Call of Duty or any of the first-person shooter stuff, right? Like, that makes sense. You're a Valorant player, like, you get it, right? You got to be able to talk to your team, tell them where people are, whatever. So that I kind of give a pass. But even those games, I won't play without people I don't already know anymore. Like, I'm already
understandable.
Yeah. There's like so many negative experiences, and I'm just like, and if I turn chat off, I can't really play the game the way it's intended to be played. So I'm better off just not even playing it. I mean, that was my last interaction with League of Legends, folks, was disastrous.
And one of the Overwatch streamers that I watch, he says he doesn't turn it on until he reaches it, because I will, in defense, he does do that whole bronze to grandmaster thing where you spend about a good hour just curb stomping people till you've achieved what your proper rank is. Okay. But he says he doesn't even turn chat on until Diamond. But his experience is unique. Most people that play in Diamond would never encounter anybody in bronze because the skill gap is so huge. But I guess the thing that he did figure out is that, I guess the higher you go, the more useful the chat becomes. And that's probably true of most games.
Yeah, I believe that totally. And
the lower rank is full of trolls and smurfs and just generally terrible people. But the higher you go up, people, especially if people are making content on it, if they're a pro or they're trying to be a pro, they're obviously going to take the game a whole lot more seriously than somebody that's in. A lot of people in the lower ranks are there on purpose. They quit all the time. They have McDonald's Wi-Fi, any number of things going on.
But I also realize, like, I enjoy playing Teamfight Tactics. I don't have to talk to nobody. Like, Occasionally, somebody might emote something or whatever, but that's mostly easy to ignore. And it's usually
Yeah.
somebody who's about to lose and they're just like spamming on the way out the door, right? So like whatever. Like that's it. I don't have to deal with anybody. And it's great. I don't have a problem with it. But usually when I look at games and go like, it's all online or there's a bunch of like chat that's necessary, I'm already 90% checked out. Like I even told people, like, would I still play League of Legends? Absolutely. If I had a group of 3, 4 people that want to go play it,
Yeah.
let's go. Right. Same thing. I don't even play a lot of first person shooter. I haven't played one in ages, but if people wanted to and there's a bunch of friends of mine, yeah, let's hop on and play. Hell, I'd hop on and play StarCraft 2 still probably if somebody wanted to,
Yeah.
because I don't have to talk to no one. Right. But the thing is, my experiences, and this is me, like, I've been through a lot of crap. Hell, I had some people say some not so pleasant stuff to me when I'm in Texas sometimes. Like, it's all right.
Yeah.
I can deal with it. But when it's just my leisure time, I'm just choosing not to deal with it. Like, I can make the active decision not to. And it's just like, why am I going to put myself in that spot if it's avoidable? So, like, that's my stance. But, like,
Yeah.
I get why other people want it. It's just definitely not for me.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where, hey, we can obviously agree to disagree. It
Yeah.
ain't something going to be for everybody, but I just like to have the option.
I mean, I've been called so many racial slurs and heard so many things. I'm
Oh
just like,
yeah, that's
yeah, I'm done. Like, I just don't need this time of night, especially after
I get it.
now while I'm doing like all this content and being busy all day and it's midnight. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna play games for a couple hours before I go to sleep. And you're 30 minutes into the shenanigans, and I'm just like, whatever, I'm just turning this off and going to bed. Like, I don't even want to game
Yeah.
no more. Right. So it's tough. It's tough. Why don't you everybody where they can find you on socials, Brian?
All right, I am Brian Sonic on Twitter, YouTube. Our family channel on YouTube is Alan's Ever After.
And you can find me just about everywhere at PowrDragn, PowrDragn, on most social platforms. And if you're going to be down at the Command Fest Orlando, you should come see me because I'm going to be down there hanging out, having fun, and, maybe we can go out and have a drink or something. I don't know. But as always, wherever you are watching now and or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please take care of yourselves and your family. Remember to be awesome, and most importantly, be awesome to each other.